Okay, let's unpack this. You're trying to describe simple conversation, right?
Right.
But how someone spoke was, well, everything.
Yeah.
Was it like a tense shouting match? Or maybe quiet frustration?
Uh-huh. Or maybe like a secret, whispered, or someone just mumbling nervously.
Exactly. And you find yourself thinking, what's the word for that in English? The one that just clicks. Ever feel that?
Oh, definitely. And it's fascinating, isn't it, how much information we actually pack into the way we speak. It's not just the words themselves.
Totally. It's the volume, the emotion kind of bubbling underneath, even the rhythm of it all.
Right. It all shapes the real message.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We've got 28 really powerful alternatives to just saying speak.
Good ones, too.
Yeah. And our mission really is to unlock those little differences for you, those subtle but honestly significant distinctions.
Think of it like getting a shortcut.
Yeah, a shortcut to understanding not just English better, but maybe communication itself a bit more deeply. Get ready for some aha moments, hopefully.
And this isn't just, academic. It's about being a sharper observer in your daily life, picking up on things you might otherwise miss.
It really is. And we're drawing all this from a great YouTube transcript that really digs into these verbs. So are you ready to tune your ear to the finer points?
Let's do it. Where should we start? Maybe with something really obvious, like volume.
Good idea. Yeah, volume. From super quiet to, like, shaking the walls loud.
It tells you a lot straight away, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, quiet end first. How about whisper?
Ah, whisper. Very soft, almost breathy. You immediately think secrecy, right? Or maybe intimacy.
Yeah, like in a movie theater, someone leans over.
Exactly. That deliberate quietness. It signals something confidential is happening. It pulls you in.
Okay, so slightly louder, maybe, but still soft is murmur.
Right. Murmur is soft, but it's often indistinct, like someone talking under their breath.
So maybe that kid who broke the vase and just kind of murmurs, sorry, you can barely make it out.
Exactly. But it's not always negative, is it?
No, that's true. You could murmur thank you very softly, and could feel quite gentle or even affectionate.
Yeah, exactly. It's soft and maybe unclear, but the feeling behind it can vary, which is different again from mumble.
Okay, how's mumble different?
Yeah.
Also, quiet and unclear.
It is, but mumble often comes from being nervous or maybe shy or just not articulating well.
Ah, right, like someone mumbling through a presentation because they're uncomfortable. You can't really catch what they're saying.
Yeah, it tells you something about how you're feeling in that moment, their unease.
Okay, so whisper for secrets, murmur is soft and indistinct, mumble is unclear, often from nerves. What about mutter?
Mutter is interesting, still quiet, but now we're getting a clear dose of emotion, usually irritation or unhappiness.
Right, like someone muttering about how unfair the decision was after a meeting.
Exactly. You might not hear every word, but you hear the grumbling, the discontent. We'll actually come back to mutter when we talk more about emotion.
Got it. Quiet, but with an edge. Okay, let's crank up the volume. Where do we start on the louder side? Chat.
Yeah, chat is a good starting point. Light, informal, easy conversation.
Like friends just chatting over coffee. Relaxed.
Mm-hmm. Then maybe exclaim. That's a bit louder, often sudden.
Oh, right. Like surprise or excitement. Wow, that's amazing, you might exclaim.
Precisely. Building up from there, you get shout.
Okay, shout. Loud. Trying to be heard over noise or maybe strong emotion.
Both, really. Shouting across a crowded room or shouting in anger. It's about projecting your voice forcefully.
And yell. Is it different from shout?
Similar, but yell often feels maybe a bit more intense. Could be excitement, like yelling at a game, or frustration, like a customer yelling.
Okay, so yell might carry a bit more emotional force sometimes than holler.
Holler feels a bit more informal, maybe. A loud shout could be a greeting across attendance, hey, or maybe a warning.
Like hollering for someone down the street. Got it.
Getting louder still. Roar.
Roar. That sounds powerful. Deep. Loud. Like real anger. Or maybe massive excitement.
Exactly. Almost primal. Think of a football coach roaring at the referee, or a crowd roaring approval. Big sound, big emotion.
And right at the top. Has to be scream, right?
Yep, scream. Usually high-pitched, driven by intense emotion, often fear, maybe pain or terror.
Like screaming when you see a huge spider.
Definitely. So you see, just with volume, we've gone from a tiny breath to a massive sound, and each word paints a slightly different picture.
It's amazing how many options there are. Okay, let's pause here for our first listener check-in. Think back to maybe a movie scene or something you saw happen.
Mm-hmm.
Was there some tense whispering, a sudden shout, maybe a frustrated murmur. Try to picture it and see which word whisper, murmur, mumble, mutter, chat, exclaim, shout, yell, holler, roar, scream really fits the sound and the feeling.
Good exercise. Now, beyond just volume, let's dive into words that are practically dripping with emotion.
Yeah, because sometimes the way it's said tells you more than the words.
Mm-hmm.
Like if someone says, we need to talk, versus sighing heavily than saying we need to talk.
Exactly. That sigh or maybe a groan adds a whole other layer. Like a child groaning, "Are we there yet?" You feel the boredom.
Totally. Okay, let's explore some of these. How about ones for negative feelings first, like grumble?
Ah, grumble. Complaining, but in a low, unhappy sort of way, like grumbling about the long queue.
Right, dissatisfied muttering almost.
Then there's gush, which is emotion, but the opposite kind.
Oh yeah, gush is pure enthusiasm, isn't it? Just overflowing with excitement.
Totally. Gushing about a new job or great movie you saw. Unrestrained positivity.
Okay, back to the less happy ones. Sigh, we mentioned that.
Yeah, that audible breath out. It can be relief, but often it's frustration, sadness, weariness.
Like sighing over a huge pile of work.
Mm-hmm. And related, but maybe deeper, is groan.
Groan? That sounds more pain, doesn't it? Discomfort or strong displeasure.
Yeah, like groaning when the dentist says you need a filling. Or like my daughter groaning about doing the dishes.
Ah, I know that
Yeah.
sound.
Oh.
Okay, what about whine?
Whine. High-pitched, drawn-out complaining. Often associated with kids, maybe.
Definitely, I don't want to go.
That kind of sound. It can be really grating.
It can. Now let's bring mutter back in here.
Right, we said it was quiet irritation.
Exactly. It fits here too because that irritation, that annoyance, is key. Muttering criticism under your breath after someone leaves the room.
Okay, then hiss. That sounds quite intense.
It is sharp, quiet, but full of anger or menace, like saying, be quiet, but hissed. It's chilling.
Definitely conveys strong negative feeling without being loud. What's next? Snap.
Snap. Sudden, sharp, usually angry words like snapping, stop interrupting me, no warmth there.
Ooh, yeah. Impatient, maybe cutting. Okay, getting more forceful now. Bark.
Bark. Loud, abrupt commands, very forceful, often demanding immediate action.
Like a teacher barking instructions at a rowdy class.
Precisely. Then growl.
Growl. Low, threatening sound, like you're really angry and warning someone off.
Yeah, a guttural sound of displeasure. You might growl at someone who's provoking you. And the last one in this emotional batch, rant.
Rant. This is speaking at length, passionately, often angrily or critically. Letting it all out.
Like ranting about bad customer service or something you feel is unfair.
Exactly. A whole outpouring of strong feelings. So you see, these words aren't just about speaking, they're about feeling while speaking.
Clearly. Okay, time for another quick check-in for you, the listener. Imagine you've had one of those days. Just awful. Traffic was bad, you spilled coffee, missed a deadline.
The worst.
How would you tell a friend about it? Which word feels right? Would you grumble? Maybe sigh a lot? Perhaps just snap? Or even launch into a full rant? Think about which of these grumble, gush, sigh, groan, whine, mutter, hiss, snap, bark, growl, rant captures your way of expressing that frustration.
It's useful to connect it to your own reactions. Okay, final category. Speed and rhythm. How fast or slow, how smoothly someone speaks.
Right, because that also tells us so much. Like if you ask someone an unexpected question and they start to stammer.
Exactly. Or think of an excited kid just babbling away, jumping from one thing to another. The flow itself is communication.
So let's look at variations here. Ramble.
Ramble. Talking for a long time, but kind of aimlessly. Jumping around, not really getting to the point.
Yeah, maybe when someone's nervous or just doesn't have their thoughts organized, a professor rambling about obscure history facts, perhaps.
Could be. Then the opposite, maybe. Drawl.
Drawl. Slow speech, stretching out the vowels.
Yeah, like that classic Southern drawl stereotype. It gives a feeling of being laid back, maybe slow-paced. Think Matthew McConaughey.
I did that right. God. Okay, then babble, you mentioned.
Babble. Fast, excited talk. Maybe not always making perfect sense, just enthusiasm pouring out, like Phoebe from Friends sometimes.
Good example. Okay, blurt.
Blurt. That's saying something suddenly, impulsively, often without really meaning to or thinking it through.
Like you just blurt out the first thought that comes into your head. I blurted out the answer.
Yep. Then there's trail off.
Yeah. When someone starts speaking, but their voice gets quieter and quieter, and then just stops.
Exactly. Often happens when someone's unsure or they lose confidence in what they're saying. They trail off, leaving the sentence unfinished.
Okay. Now, stammer. You mentioned this for nervousness.
Yes. Stammer is about those involuntary pauses, the ums and maybe repeating the start of a word because you're anxious or flustered.
Like stammering when you have to give an unexpected speech. Now, crucially, that's different from stutter, right?
Yes, very important distinction. Stuttering is generally understood as a speech disorder. It involves repeating sounds or syllables or prolonging them or having blocks.
So it's more of a consistent pattern, maybe struggling with certain sounds like P or B.
Exactly. Whereas stammering is often situational, brought on by nerves or stress, stuttering is more persistent.
Okay, good to clarify that. Stammering is temporary nerves. Stuttering is a speech condition. And that wraps up our look at speed and flow.
So, quick reflection for you again. Ever blurted something out or found yourself stammering when you were put on the spot?
We've all been there, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Those moments really show how the mechanics of speaking shift with our state of mind.
Definitely.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground. 28 ways to talk about talking, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Now, let's make this really practical. It's your turn, listener, to try applying this. A little challenge.
We've got 4 scenarios. For each one, pick the best verb from the choices given. Ready?
Okay, scenario 1. A student is in the library telling a friend some really exciting exam results, but they have to be quiet. Would they whisper, chat, shout, or murmur?
Okay. Scenario 2. A child desperately wants an expensive toy in a shop. How are they asking their parent? Would they whine, mutter, rant, or whisper?
Scenario 3. Picture a grandmother just beaming with joy, telling you all about holding her newborn grandchild for the very first time. Is she likely to trail off, gush, hiss, or stammer?
And the last one, scenario 4. A customer is furious about the terrible service they got. How are they expressing their anger to the manager? Would they chat, holler, rant, or stutter?
Take a second. Think about those. Which word fits best for each situation? We're not giving answers now.
Nope. The idea is for you to think about it, mull it over, see which one feels right based on everything we've discussed.
Exactly. Because actively choosing the word really helps cement the meaning.
It does.
So let's bring this all home. The big takeaway here is that moving beyond just speak or say makes your English, well, richer, more precise.
You communicate so much more the emotion, the volume, the whole vibe of the situation just by picking a more specific verb.
It allows you to paint a much clearer picture, whether you're telling a story or describing something you observed.
And understanding these nuances makes you a more informed listener, too. You pick up on the subtleties in how others communicate.
Absolutely. You become more attuned to the full message, not just the literal words.
It's about that deeper layer of communication.
So here's a final thought, a little mission for you. As you go about your day to day, really listen. Notice how people are talking, not just what they're saying. Is someone muttering? Is someone else gushing? Is the pace fast or slow?
And maybe try using 1 or 2 of these words yourself, even if it's just in your own head, describing a situation to yourself.
Yeah. Consciously think, they weren't just talking, they were ranting. Or she didn't just say it, she whispered it. It's a really powerful way to make these words your own.
It connects the learning directly to your world, makes it stick.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the many ways we speak. We hope it's given you some new tools and maybe a new appreciation for the richness of English expression.
Hope you found it useful. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling something that trips up a lot of English learners, and maybe even native speakers sometimes. The difference between have to, need to, and must.
Yeah, they all seem to mean you gotta do it.
Right.
But the nuance is really important.
Totally. And we're using a great source today, a transcript from Speak Confident English on YouTube, which really breaks it down.
Right. And our goal isn't just definitions, but we want to get into the feel of these words, how they work in real life.
Exactly. So you can use them confidently. We'll be looking at, where the obligation comes from, how strong it feels.
How flexible it is, and even how formal each one sounds. Understanding those things, that's the key.
Okay, let's jump in. How about we start with have to? It feels like the most common one, maybe.
Sounds good. Have to. The transcript points out, and it's a really key distinction, this usually comes from an external source.
External, so like not from me, but from outside.
Exactly. Rules, laws, company policies, societal expectations, that kind of thing.
Okay. The transcript example is starting a new job at a spa, right?
Yeah. You have to be there at 9 a.m. You have to wear the uniform. It's not your personal choice setting that requirement.
It's the company rules. Makes sense.
Or think about filing taxes. You have to do it. That's the government.
Right, a legal thing.
Or motorcyclists in many places have to wear helmets. Again, a law.
Okay, or like if you want to travel internationally, you generally have to get a visa or have a passport.
Perfect examples. The obligation is coming from outside the individual.
So how strong is this have to? The transcript mentioned it's strong, but maybe a little flexible.
Yeah, strong but slightly flexible is a good way to put it. There are usually consequences if you don't comply.
Like getting a fine if you don't pay taxes, or a ticket for no helmet.
Exactly. So it's serious. But sometimes there might be, ways to manage it or maybe some slight leeway within the rules. Not always, but sometimes.
And how does it sound? Formal? Casual?
Have to is pretty neutral, actually. Very common in everyday speech and totally fine in most writing, too. It's a real workhorse.
Okay, so for everyone listening, maybe think for a second. What's one thing you have to do because of some external rule?
Good prompt. Now let's contrast that. What happens if we shift to need to?
Ah, okay. Need to. How's this one different?
Well, the big shift, according to the transcript, is that the source becomes internal. It's personal.
Internal. So it comes from my own feelings or judgment.
Precisely. Your own judgment, your priorities, your values, your goals. It's something you decide is necessary or important for yourself.
The example used was canceling dinner plans because an aunt is unwell.
Right. Saying, I need to go see my aunt or I need to help her. That's driven by a personal sense of responsibility or care. Nobody's forcing you with a rule.
It's your own priority taking over. I get that.
Or other examples like, I really need to drink more water. That's a personal health goal.
Okay, or maybe I need to apologize to my friend. That's coming from your own feeling about what's right.
Exactly. Even something practical like, I need to stop at the grocery store on the way home. It's based on recognizing a personal or household requirement.
So the feeling is different. Is it as strong as have to?
Generally, no. The transcript calls it softer than have to or must. It's often more self-imposed.
Which means the consequences for not doing it are maybe more personal too, like feeling guilty or just not meeting your own goal.
That's usually the case, yeah.
Yeah.
And because it's self-imposed, there's often more flexibility.
You can decide if or when you actually do the thing you need to do.
Right. The decision to act is generally up to you, and like have to, need to is very common, sounds neutral, perfectly normal in conversation.
Okay. So thinking about this week, what's something you feel you need to do based on your own stuff, your personal list?
That internal driver. Okay, ready for the big one? Must.
Ah, yes, must. This one feels heavier somehow,
Wow.
more serious.
It definitely carries the most weight. The transcript describes it as indicating an absolute non-negotiable obligation.
Non-negotiable. Wow, where does that come from?
It can stem from a few places. A really strong personal conviction like, I must stand up for what's right. Or it could be a very strict rule or law, often one with serious consequences.
Or even just logic. The transcript mentioned that.
Yes, like a logical deduction. Someone's been using the kitchen. The kettle must still be warm. It's presented as the only logical conclusion.
And it sounds more formal too, doesn't it? The transcript highlighted that.
Definitely. It's more common in writing, official signs, instructions. Passengers must keep their luggage with them at all times.
You don't hear it quite as much in casual chat compared to have to or need to.
Generally not, unless someone wants to add real emphasis or formality. The transcript used the example of a critical work deadline.
Right. I must get this project finished before I leave today. It signals absolute necessity.
Exactly. Failure isn't really presented as an option, or the consequences are understood to be severe.
Like, we must leave now if we want to catch that flight. The consequence of missing the flight is significant.
Perfect. Or, you must wear a seatbelt. That's a legal requirement tied directly to safety, very strong obligation.
So strength-wise, it's the top. Absolutely necessary, little or no flexibility.
That's the essence of it. Strongest of the three, least flexible, and typically the most formal.
Okay. Can you think back to a time when something felt like a definite must for you? What made it feel so critical?
It's a strong feeling when it happens. Now, this is really important. The negative forms. Because they don't mean what you might intuitively think.
Ah, yeah. Negatives can be tricky in English. Let's break these down carefully. What about mustn't?
Mustn't means prohibition. Absolutely not allowed. Forbidden.
Like the sign says, you mustn't smoke here.
Exactly. Or, you mustn't be late for the final exam. They won't let you in. It's a strict, do not do this.
Okay, so mustn't, forbidden. Got it. How is that different from don't have to?
Completely different. Don't have to means there's no obligation. It's optional. You can do it if you want, but you're not required to.
Ah, okay. So if the invitation says you don't have to bring a gift,
It means a gift is welcome, but not required. Your choice entirely. Or she doesn't have to come to the meeting if he's busy. It's optional for her.
right. So mustn't is you are not allowed, but don't have to is you are not required. Big difference.
Huge difference. And then there's don't need to. How does that fit in?
Okay, don't need to. What's the angle there?
Don't need to also signals a lack of obligation, but it often emphasizes that the action is unnecessary. There's no reason or need for it.
Unnecessary. Okay, like, you don't need to apologize. It wasn't your fault.
Perfect. Or the transcript example.
Yeah.
I don't need to go to the store for milk. We already have plenty. The action isn't needed because the necessity isn't there.
So while don't have to focuses on lack of external requirement, don't need to often focuses on the lack of practical necessity.
That's a great way to think about it. They're similar and sometimes interchangeable, but don't need to often carries that it's pointless or it's already covered implications more strongly.
Okay, that's clearer. Mustn't forbidden, don't have to, not required optional, don't need to, not necessary.
You got it. And one final slightly tricky point, the transcript mentioned about negatives, specifically with must in the past.
Oh yeah, what was that?
We generally avoid using mustn't have to talk about something that wasn't necessary or required in the past. Instead, we use didn't have to.
Ah, okay. So instead of saying I mustn't have gone to work yesterday because it was a holiday.
You'd say, I didn't have to go to work yesterday.
Yeah.
That's the standard, natural way to express lack of past obligation.
Good tip. Didn't have to for lack of obligation in the past. Noted.
It's a common little snag, so worth remembering.
All right, so let's pull this all together. Have to is generally for external rules and obligations.
Right. Laws, policies, what others expect.
Need to comes from inside your personal priorities, goals, or sense of necessity.
Yep, self-driven.
And must is the heavyweight. Absolute obligation, very strong, often formal, or a logical certainty.
The non-negotiable one.
And the negatives are key. Mustn't is a ban, don't have to means optional, and don't need to means unnecessary.
Exactly. And understanding those distinctions really helps refine your English. The next step, like the Speak Confident English folks suggest, is really to consciously think about this.
Try to make your own sentences. Apply it to your life.
Yeah, think about your day or your week. What do you have to do? What do you need to do? When might you use must? And what about the negatives? That active use makes it stick.
Makes sense. And that leads us to a final thought, maybe something to explore next.
Go on.
Well, building on this idea of obligation and necessity, the source also mentioned exploring related verbs like should and be supposed to.
Ah, good point. They bring in different shades of meaning like advice, expectation, milder obligation.
Exactly. So if you found this deep dive useful, maybe digging into should and be supposed to could be a great next step for understanding these kinds of nuances even better.
Definitely a worthwhile path for further learning.
Well, that's our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us.